memory, my grandmother, my mother's mother, was Miss Lavala. She lived in Balangudan, not with my mother, but with her sister. As her eldest daughter, Mrs. Javadra. And my mother lived in Balangudan and Mahaulatan with her father. Mr. St. Mahaulatan was a Rate Mahatya. And my father married Binna, gone to Binna, and came and settled down in Mahaulatan. And he got his father-in-law's job, Rate Mahatya. Then they were influenced a lot to transfer their jobs from son to son-in-law and all that. So that's how my father became Rate Mahatya. They are from Kandy. There are three sisters of Ratwatis, Mahaya Ratwatis, Dumbar Ratwatis and Nagol Ratwatis. My father gave Mahaya. There are 11 boys in their family. And their mother was Miss Leuke Ratwat. Story is one mother, of course, and three. Yes, she had 3 sons. And they were all went as, what is it? Not Ratwat. No, that's Parnagamas. They were all Parnagamas. So she went to the governor then at that time and said, I want 2 of my sons to go as Ratwatas. So she took all the 3 sons and 2 were named Ratwatas, the other Parnagamas. And my father happened to be Ratwat. My father was a very kind-hearted man, but very scared of him. He was not that he was hard on him. Anyway, he was a disciplinarian and never allowed us to go about, and always very careful that we as young girls should not go out. You want to go play tennis? I used to go for tennis. I had to be escorted by somebody, an aunt of mine or somebody, or himself. I used to help him a lot in his work. When he was at Mahatya during the malaria epidemic, and in the social service work, I used to help him. I was at home, I left school early. I was at home for about 5 years after I left school. So I was very helpful to him. A strong person after me was my mother, no doubt. She was one who dominated all of us. More than she had treated a lot of people and cured also. And I used to help her with making the medicine, because she never allowed the people to take and make the medicine at home, because they won't make it properly. So she had all the equipment for that. She should do it at home. I used to help her with that, to grind things and pound things and make the mixture. I used to keep some of them patients at home. Now, for instance, a woman came, she had gone to pick firewood and got a piece of firewood into her eye. She came with this piece of stick in her eye. My mother pulled it out and kept her there and treated and cured her. I sent her. When she got from her father, I don't know. We lived with the old gentleman for some time at Mahaulatan. It was a primitive area, but beautiful place. Mahaulatan, of course, are paddy fields and forest. And even elephants are not very far from there, because my grandfather cut a huge ditch to keep the elephants out. It's still there. That ditch is, of course, now most of it is covered up now, but it's still there. That's to keep wild elephants out. So it was a wild elephant area. Now, of course, it is there are a lot of villages there, families. So my parents are buried there. Then my mother wanted to leave because she lost her father there and some 2 children. She refused to stay there. So we had to come to Balanguda. My father's circuit bungalow, we came and lived there and got it improved. School, first I went to a kindergarten school in Balanguda. I have some friends of ours running a school. Balasuri, they were a planter's family. I was there just for a short time, and then from there I went to Ferguson High School, Ratnapura. For a short time, stayed with grand aunt of my mother's aunt. cart used to come in the morning to buggy car. I used to go with a chaperone in the buggy car to the school. I enjoyed that. And he used to come in the evening and pick me up. Nuns were very nice, very nice. Irish nuns, very kind. Martin Gerard, she was one of the oldest there. She died also there. Martin Daria was a music teacher. Martin Agatha, you must have heard about her. Short lady, yes. Girls used to play the fool of her. Muslim teachers died over there. Some left the country and went some into other convents out of the country to Bangalore and some in Far East, Burma. Some of the nuns went. Some went to France. Mahesh Buttunagam, Princess Silva, and Decima Fernando. She's in Australia now. And Yogaman Yogasundaram. She's also in Australia. A lot of my friends have gone away, of course. Those are my close friends in the boarding. I think I was not happy about it. For days I cried. It was not too bad. Only were complaining about the food. But my mother said, I know why you all are making all these fuss. You can't expect better food than when you are cooking in large quantities. Anyway, we were grumbling. We had to go to church. As boarders, we had to go to church for mass in the early morning, get up at 5 in the morning and go to church. Why? Because they didn't want to leave us alone and go in the boarding. For fear that somebody might run away. One girl did run away. So after that, we had to go to church. We liked it around. Because we should make cause excuses and stay back, saying that not well. Otherwise, we had to go to church. We liked it around us, especially Sundays and weekdays. No, we used to take books and read behind. We sit in the back pew and we take our school books and study there in church. Of course, we got caught. We got it from the nuns. Everything we had to do to time. From the moment you got out of bed, you had to go to church as a Catholic. I was not a Catholic, but a Catholic convent. And from that time on, everything was done to time. Studying, bathing, eating, everything was done. So we were used to discipline. We didn't, of course, we got bad marks. If you were late, they got 10 bad marks. If you were disrespectful, they got 10 bad marks. At the end, they total those marks and we were punished some way. So I think that discipline really worked in all of us. So I am very proud that I stayed at the convent and I went through that discipline. There was a man called Mr. Nanakara from Panadura, who was a VC chairman. He was very close to my husband. He and another gentleman called Mr. Senaratna. I think they read it. I was not aware of all that. He came alone. He came as Minister of Local Government and Health. He came to visit the clinic. On that pretext, he was brought there. And he had lunches and went. First time I met him, and a man from a big family in Colombo, in South. Actually, I had to think a lot before I decided. My marriage was a happy one. You might ask why? Because my husband was very good to me. He understood me and I understood him. Some people thought it was difficult. It was not difficult. He understood people. If you understood him, it was easy to live with him. People was wondering how I was living with this man. They thought it was very hard and strict. No. I first came for a homecoming. There was a homecoming ceremony for that. And we had, of course, receptions all the way in Ratanagar electorate, including Tumpe. About 20 receptions on the way. We finished there by the time we came home here up to the gate was nearly 2 o'clock. And we were received there by a procession of dancers and all that with the staff of the Horgola conducting us to the we had to walk up here. And then when I came, of course, there was the stately old Sir Solomon Bandaranaike, father-in-law who stood there and greeted us. Because he scolded the son for getting late. He was of course very nice to me because I used to go off with my husband, but I was little scared because of his position, Mahmoud and big man. Actually, I was scared. Of course, he was a different type of man, but he was loved by because he helped the people a lot. You go to any temple in Nathanal, they always say, we got tithes from Sir Solomon, we got timber from Sir Solomon. He helped in temples. So he was loved by the people, not only my husband. My husband's great grandfather, also Bandaranaike. His photograph is upstairs, portrait. He was the one who was asked by the British government to build the candy Abepusa Road. And he had come here to find a spot to stay. And he walked down here, it was all forest here. He found a kiriba here. It's a Solomon book also, remember these studies? And it was an ideal spot to build a house, lucky spot. That's why we built the house here. My husband lived in Wentworth. He took a rent house, land in his house next to the Landville Theatre called Wentworth, and he lived there. I came there. For some years we were there. Then we shifted to Russell Place. He bought this, my father-in-law bought this, my husband, and we came here. We were born here. No, at Wentworth. She was born, and so was Chandrika, and only Andra was born in Russell Place. After children born, I was not so lonely. I was doing Mahila Samiti work, so I had to give a lot of time for that also. Sometimes I did neglect the children also. I had to, because I had to do this Mahila Samiti work with Mrs. T.L. C. Rajapaksa and crowd, and we used to go out visiting to the villages, which I found very interesting. So, but I neglected and didn't, because I had good servants for the children. I had a nanny for Sunitra. Of course, he had problems with the UNP, as you know. And he had to get over that. And finally left the UNP because of that. Because I was behind it to get it out of the UNP, I must say. Because I know what DS was doing. He wanted to put his son there. He thought son should succeed him, not my husband. So he was all the time encouraging that. In fact, when that they formed the government in 1943, I think. He asked for the Ministry of Agriculture, but he said, no, I want to give to my son Dudley because I can control it. And he said, then my husband, give me health and local government. So he allowed that. So it didn't take him long to form. He left the UNP in 1951. In 51 September he formed the SLP. Left in 51 July, the government, and formed the SLP in September 51 September 3rd. Because I was helping him in his election, not that I went around addressing meetings and all that. For the first time in my life I addressed meetings, especially his own electorate, because he had to go out to help the others. After he left the UNP in 52, he had his own party, so he had to help his own party, and as a leader he had to go around. So I allowed him to go, and I talked to his electorate. Then it was Dompe and Athanagale together. It was a big electorate, but I did it. Of course, I got carried from the women, rural women, Mahila Samiti. I thought if they can speak, why can't I? They are so not self-conscious at all, the rural women, so I got courage from that. That's how I really started talking. Mahila Samiti taught me how to speak.
The domestics were sent in the car to fetch us from school, and we were already told while we were in school that he had been shot and injured badly and taken to the hospital. So when we came home, there was blood all over the floor, but he'd been taken to the hospital.
The body was brought from Parliament here and kept in the sitting room for 2 days. Then it was taken to the grounds which we selected where he is buried now and buried there. I had 3 children who were very young when my husband died, and the party was of course going to pieces, so I had decided between the party and the children. So I had to think of both. So then I of course took a long time to decide. I consulted, of course, Felix was the one who really persuaded me to do it. So Chandika and Anura were forcing me. I think Felix had got it because I had to put on the children, not Sunita, of course. They said, "Amma, why don't you do it? Tata's party. You have to save the party. You can, the only one who can save it, Chandika and Anura, not Sunita."
One Sunday, I still remember very well, at that time we were mad on pop music and all that, and we used to have this listener's choice on Sundays from 2 to 5, and we used to be glued to the radio listening to this. And he barged in one Sunday when I was listening to this, and I said, "I want to talk to you." And I was annoyed that he was disturbing my listening program. And he sat there in the sitting room at Rosemary Place and spoke to me for 1 hour, and at the end of the 1 hour, he had persuaded me that I should persuade my mother to come in, actively into politics. And I still remember the one sentence that persuaded me was, I can't remember anything else. I was arguing with him all the time, arguing against him. There was the sentence where he said, "Well, your father gave his life to this party and to this movement, and are you going to allow all that to be wasted? Because if you are not going to allow your mother to come into this and take the leadership of this whole thing, it's going to be finished." And something happened inside me, and I got highly emotional and all that, and I thought, yes, this is true. Okay, for a short time, let her do it. And then I went. He obviously realized the right person to persuade. I went to Sunetra and spoke to her. She said, "Oh, I don't care, let them do anything," because by this time we were all sick of this, because people were trying to persuade us to persuade her, you see. And she said, "You do what you like, I won't object." Then I persuaded Anura. He was very small then, but it took a little more time. And then I went and started telling her, "You should do this."
If they could have done that to the man who did so much for the country, it was first of all living here, I want to get out of the country, but my parents wouldn't hear of it. My mother said, "You also want to go and get killed?" She was trying to discourage me. Even my brothers and sisters were not happy about it at all. I said, "Well, can't help it. If I'm going to get killed for country, I'll do it." I had great faith in most of gods, mainly Katragama and Vishnu. When I had decided to take to politics, I went to my shrine room, spent hours there, and appealed to the gods to please guide me and tell me what I should do. And I think I was given inspiration.
When my father died, I was 16, Chandrika 14, and Anura was only 10. And we were all very seriously affected, particularly Anura. It wasn't too bad for my sister and me, but I think it was really very bad for my brother, because the shock of my father's death and the fear that the same thing could happen to his mother really used to upset him a great deal. And I was told by my aunts, I don't remember this, that when she used to get ready and get into the car to go to the office or wherever, he used to come crying and hang on her sari and beg of her not to go, because he must have thought in small little boy's mind, "My goodness, my mother is going away now, she's never going to come back."
When she became Prime Minister in 1960 July, the whole scenario changed because she couldn't possibly be at home. And then we had to move from this house in 1961 after the attempted coup by some of the armed forces personnel, and they felt this place was not safe. So we moved to Temple Trees, and we lived there till 1965. And I was sleeping in the same room as until about 1964.
Because my mother was a very stable, strong, calm person, I think we had a very calm life. It didn't upset us until my father's assassination, which sort of turned the tables over completely, I think, for all of us, and it affected perhaps some of us more than the others of the three children. Until then we had a very stable, calm life that also influenced us and probably helped all three of us to overcome better than most people the problems that we had to face and the crises at different times, because we had a very good, strong grounding before in that sense in the home background.
At the age of 6, there was an old astrologer in this area where my mother used to consult. She was a great believer in astrology. One day this man, while reading her horoscope, had told my father, "Sir, this young lady will one day be the king of this country. Rajaveno." My father laughed, the biggest laugh of his life. He said, "Are you mad? We are under the British. How can a girl become anything in this country?" I mean, that time ladies were not in politics either. He said, right, if I live to see it one day, I will come and talk to you, but unfortunately that old man died before she became Prime Minister.
I think part it was sympathy. Mainly it was sympathy. Because as widow, and when I spoke to women were crying. At meetings they used to cry. That's how I knew it was sympathy. And the men also, I was surprised the men supported me fully. Otherwise I couldn't have won. And they all realized, especially because my husband was so popular, somebody is coming to take his place. That was one of the reasons why I think they really supported me. I was in mourning. I was mourning clothes. No jewelry, nothing, just only sari and white sari. For 3 years I mourned. So that was, I think, brought sympathy. Not that I wanted sympathy, but that was my feeling. I thought I mustn't go colored. And that was helped, I think.
I met her when she came to office for the first time after swearing in the cabinet, which took about, if I remember, about 6 or 7 days after the elections, because cabinet making was a little complex because there was a three-party coalition. And when eventually she turned up and we sat together, both of us alone, for the first time, I had to ask her a particular question because I was young. I was perhaps just a little over 32 years at the time, and I want to get the parameters right. And so I asked her, "Madam, now that you have appointed me as your secretary, could you please let me know whether I have the license to tell you exactly what I feel is the facts, are the facts and the correct position, or am I supposed to read your mind and say what you would like to hear?" I think she was taken aback, but very soon regained the composure somewhat, and she said, "Heaven keep me from people who would tell me what I would like to hear." She used to come by about 9:30, 10 in the morning, having attended to those boxes and other matters at Temple Trees, and then she would go on till virtually till about 3:34 without a break. She would read a paper very carefully, and all her secretaries or anybody who sent a paper to her had to be quite alert, because this was not a routine matter. Many were the times when she had altered or adjusted a draft, and many were the times we felt that those adjustments were very valid, and we had not sometimes seen a particularly important issue. In a way we had seen the trees but not the wood, but she saw the wood. She was able to to go on, but never being ruffled, always looking very cool and very relaxed. This is something that it was difficult for us to, because we used to wilt after a few hours. But she had this ability to sit there. She hardly got up from a seat, and just to go on. And this was really a phenomenal thing.
We knew that if we wanted her for anything at all, she was there for us. She used to always say, look, if I were you, this is the way I would do it. She's a solid anchor, totally dependable at all times. Never gave the impression that she would waver or be timid or look over her shoulder or take 2 steps back. Never. So she had this great quality of being unemotional. That is not to say she was ruthless or heartless, but she was unemotional.
I think she has a very easy natural charm about her. She smiles very easily, which is very important. And I think she gets on, she basically likes people, though she's a little aloof at times. She gets on well with people. And I think she has this natural sort of thing in her. Oh, she has tremendous charisma, even though she's now 80. She has tremendous charisma. But that's what kept the SLP going for so long. Because you see, the SLP's record between 70 and 77 was dismal. And people had lost all faith that the SLP would ever deliver the goods. And she kept it going in spite of all that. And brought it back as a fighting force. So others were able to carry on what she carried on, took over from where she stopped. It's a party with varying philosophies, unlike the UNP, which is one philosophy. And to keep such disparate forces together with alliances with Marxists and communists and right-wing parties and communal parties, but to keep them all together for so long is a tremendous achievement. And I think she's essentially a quintessential politician, which my father was not. He was very much more interested in other things, reading and playing billiards, and he used to go for weekends and all that, to Horowald and so on. My mother is just politics 24 hours a day.
Well, I think she has achieved an immense lot of things. Especially being the first woman Prime Minister, it wasn't easy. She was not trained into politics like my father, or even, let us say, even myself. And given all those shortcomings, let us say, I think she did excellently well. She of course had very good advisors at the time, but she just took to it like a duck to water, and she has done some of the most long-lasting, most historic things, adopted the most important policies which are still going on today.
When she walked into a cabinet meeting, I don't know what it was like when my father did it. I suppose he walked in laughing, joking, smoking his pipe with his arm round a minister, immediate informality. But she used to walk in looking very stern, holding her file in her hand. All the ministers used to rise up, silence, she'll come, pull her chair back, sit down very sternly. And that set the pace for the cabinet meeting, And even in 1971, I wasn't in the country at that time. Soon after the insurgency, while the thing was going on, people used to tell me she was the only man in the cabinet. The ministers used to come there, the army generals, the police chiefs, with their knees knocking together, Madam, oh God, we are going to die, they are going to kill us. She used to trot off to the kitchen, make sure that there was enough food to feed all these quivering masses who were there. She sailed through it.
That's why I think Sir John said, no, there's only one woman in the cabinet, one man in the cabinet. Biggest contribution was settling of the Indo-Ceylon Pact. There was 4 prime ministers tried, they failed. And finally we succeeded in drawing something, because that was not implemented by the UMP government. But anyway, we did that. It was not an easy thing. When Shastri was prime minister, and then, and also having an online conference in Colombo. That was another achievement of mine.
පොළසන් හඬ මැද ශ්‍රී ලංකා අග්‍රාමාත්‍යතුමිය සභාවට පිවිසෙයි.
The 1962nd plenary meeting of the General Assembly is called to order. We shall continue the general debate. The first speaker this morning is the Prime Minister and Minister of Defense and External Affairs of Ceylon, Her Excellency the Honorable Sirimavo Bandaranaike.
Democracy in Ceylon faced its severest test early this year when an attempt was made by a revolutionary group to shatter the fabric of the system by violence. The protagonists were avowed enemies of the democratic process and were committed to a career of reckless destruction with no coherent policy or program of social and economic reconstruction to offer.
When I spoke to some of those boys who were arrested and brought on the first day, and I realized that the main thing was employment and lack of land. There had no land, so that's why I decided to have land reform, to start talking to those boys.
I don't know of any other leader in this entire world who gave up the only wealth they have, bringing in a policy of their own free will to give it up to the state, because she believed it had to be done. Well, whether it was right or wrong is another matter. Yes, with the land reform law, the four of us, that is my mother and the three children, we lost over 2,000 acres, about 2,500 acres of land. Of that, I would say about 1,500 of very good cultivated land, rubber and coconut. That is my father's land, and about another 1,000 or so of Nidnagam land, Rajakarya lands, which belonged to my mother, which came down from her family in the Balangud area. And thereby we got pauperized.
If I give up politics really, I'll be really very poor woman. I know what I'm going to fall back on. Because I'm not a person who lives a fabulous life, so I can manage somehow. I was not one who sort of went to parties and threw parties and did the grand. I lived a simple life, that's why we were trained. So therefore, I can manage with small income. But I don't think we are really benefited fully by being independent, because we are dependent on the World Bank for aid and other countries, which we are getting in a sort of way. Now when certain countries give us aid, they are not giving a lot of love, you have to depend on them again, because they want us to get not only the aid from them, but if you start a project, you got to get the engineers and all the experts from their country. Especially if you take the reservoirs that we built. For instance, Britain built Victoria, Sweden built Kotmale. We have to get their men to come and do it, and give them all the facilities, comforts, houses for them to come and work there. So really the aid we get is not so useful. Part of it goes back to the country. We have to get the equipment from there. All this turbines and all that got from those countries that did the work. So I don't know that aid is really so helpful. Without World Bank and IMF and all dictating to us, we will have to ourselves, we need help, no doubt. Especially for instance, when I want to nationalize petrol, the World Bank, especially America, threatened us with stopping aid. But that didn't frighten me. I went ahead.
Like some of the nationalizations of petroleum, insurance, schools, it needed a lot of courage, but she stuck by it and did it.
That's why I was always an agriculturist, and our policy was to be self-sufficient in agriculture. My husband was also, and also in clothes. My husband said, if you want to be independent, you have to be self-sufficient in clothes and in food.
There was no going forward economically. A lot of new policies were adopted, but there was 60 to 65, I think she did a lot of revolutionary things. But 70 to 77, new things were being done, some were very good, some were bad, and there was, in fact, I would say it was a lack of a clear economic policy. What was there was the closed economic policy, which was not working at all anymore. When the whole world was moving towards the free market economy, and we were also poised to take off that way, and I think our government refused to see that. And economically we hadn't done enough, and there was a huge number of young people coming on the job market without any possibility of getting employed on the horizon. There was a lot of frustration, and all these things I think worked against. The young people voted for the UNP in 77.
My civic rights were taken by, it was because Jayawardena wanted to keep me out of politics. I'll tell you, one day in Parliament when we were meeting to discuss the constitution, he asked me, how do you win Attanagala? I said, ask the people of Attanagala that question, not me. They went all out to defeat me. They spent millions of rupees and whole UMP was at Attanagala to defeat me. But I won by, Attanagala returned by 10,000. They had more faith in me than Jaya's candidate. So he couldn't get over that. That's why I think he planned to take my civic rights away. Not that there was anything really serious against me. And he formed that commission and decided he appointed the judges, he made the charges, and he also takes the decision to take my civic rights away. That's a funny democracy, I thought. Jaya didn't succeed in keep me out of politics, though he succeeded in keep me out of contest. I have no relationship. I mean, I talked to him, but I have no relationship with him. I had better relationship with Premadasa. Jaya was not so dangerous in a different way, but Premadasa was very dangerous.
I mean, the SNP as a party was thoroughly discredited in 1977, defeated, probably the worst defeat in the history of Sri Lankan politics. And she lost her civic rights in 1980 and various things happened to her. So, but I think the SNP was entirely kept going because of her charisma.
She tried very hard to give the leadership to Anura, quite understandably, because he was the only son and he was the only person who was ambitious for political position. Though I was ambitious for a program and I would always have worked for it, but I didn't want high positions until I was forced to contest the provincial council election, and then things just happened like flashes of lightning. I won with a thundering majority, and then things were just happening, and then I got kicked upstairs very fast, and it came to a position where she realized that she had to give it to me, and she took the decision.
Because I didn't have to campaign so much because Chandrika was capable enough and I was not too well lost, as you know, I just recovered from a stroke. So Chandrika didn't expect me to go out and canvass too much for her. I addressed some meetings where I was asked to go, but she did carry the burden mainly. It was in such a mess. To get out of the mess was a problem. Appointing commissioners and to catch all their, what shall I say, their misdeeds. The ministers, the commissions are still going on. As you know, most of the ministers are involved in bribery, corruption, and what shall I say, and mishandling of. No, now more and more things are coming out. I mean, we are going to finish these commissions, not in the next elections probably. Yeah, the war has come to Colombo, isn't it? Though we say we won the war in Japan, but it has come to Colombo. So we are all living in fear, not only the Japan Japanese. So how do we get over it? That's a problem. Because he thinks that the Tamils have been badly treated. That's what the Tamil politician went about saying, Amitlingam and all. And I think the UMP promised them various things which are not implemented to give them more power. But what they wanted. Gopaka is a quite different person. He's an impossible man. Is and a murderer, as you know.
I kept inviting him for discussions and he refused point blank. And now, having given the man every chance of coming into the democratic process, I am personally convinced that he is not capable of it. Psychologically, mentally, he cannot work within a peaceful system. He cannot work in a normal democratic setup.
If you now, yeah, because Prabhakaran, we can't solve this problem. He's very stubborn. If we can win over the other Tamil, the civilian Tamils, I'm not saying just give them what they want, but win them over onto our side, I think the problem can be solved. Then they'll have to force Prabhakaran to accept whatever proposal we make. I think Chandrika is trying to do that by giving them food, etc. and trying to rebuild Jaffna, rebuild the houses and give them electricity which they are lost. All that might make them happy and think at least my God, this government is better than Prabhakara's government. So that's the only way of solving this problem. My feeling is that, I mean, I may be wrong. The problem is how to satisfy them. People are very demanding. You can't satisfy them. No government can. I can't even today with the ethnic problem. The number of people against Chandrika's proposals, expressing certain views. Some who are for it, of course. But the Buddhist monks, some of them are against it. So it's not easy to overcome these problems. It's a big task. Chandrika has a big task before her. I feel sorry for Chandrika because she's trying her best to solve the problem. How far she's going to succeed, I don't know. Various people are putting obstacles in her way. But I wish her luck.
Well, I am very hopeful. I am very optimistic. But of course, I am an incurable dreamer. But I think we have had tremendous success. As a whole, if you don't look at only the ethnic issue, in re-establishing democracy and democratic values and humaneness, bringing back humaneness into the system, I think we have had tremendous success. Simply because the people are that and they wanted it, so they just responded in the whole country. Sometimes I do get very despondent about the ethnic problem because we have put everything. Anybody could to solve it, and if we can't solve it, I don't see anybody else solving it.
But will the LTT accept it? I doubt. Unless they accept, you can't. No? They are the main Tamil part today, and they call themselves the leaders of Tamils. If they don't accept it, then there is no purpose. He will send his Bal Singh and his wife Adela. They are not even Sri Lankans. Only the gods can do it like they did to Premadasa. Sir Solomon only built the whole house. It was built by his great grandfather. That's the downstairs. He built the upstairs and the rest of the house. The dining room, all that was built by Sir Solomon. And he, of course, he lived a grand life, no doubt, entertaining royalty, all that. And he had big banquets, that big dining room, had the big long table where he entertained people, royalty. And there was a panka there. I don't want to know, panka is no fans then. So the panka was used to fan the people who were sitting at meals. The boy had to pull it from outside.
Oh, I have very beautiful memories of Horogolla. We used to spend every Christmas, 1 month, the Christmas holidays there. And our playmates were always the village children. And we used to have a whale of a time. And Christmas, my father would come with he would come for the weekends. And we used to be there with my mother with lots of fireworks and crackers and things. And he used to get the servants to light these for us. And every year we celebrated my father's birthday, which came soon after Christmas. We would have a huge lunch party for all his relations and friends at Horogolla.
I was toying with the idea of converting it into a museum, my father and my mother. I haven't decided when or how it's going to be done, but there will be tremendous interest in this because there are no other main family in this country that rule this country, either Jayajavanas or Premadasas or DSN or Dudley, or anybody who has a museum like this, which can be converted into a museum. So I think it's very important that we convert it into a museum because there's nothing left for the future generations to see of their former leaders.
Main house is this, in which generations of Bandaranaikas lived. Then after that there's house, Suneta has built a house in the old stables of the Sir Solomon, where she's staying in the old stables, where he had his horses. I built a house for Chandrika. So these three houses probably dominate the area. It can be called Bandaranaike Kingdom, or you like it. I hope it will continue to maintain the family traditions here, whoever lives here.
The Bandaranaikas and the Obesekaras were the epitome of westernized Sri Lankans, westernized all Christians. All my father's relations are Christians, pillars of the Anglican Church, very gentlemanly in the British style, whereas my mother's relations are all Buddhist, Sinhala, very Sinhala oriented, though all speaking English of course. And these were the two sort of, there was no clash of the thing, but there was a, I would say, very nice marriage of the two cultures in our home. My father representing the very Western oriented thing, but as he, as an individual, appreciated all that was Sri Lankan and Sri Lankan culture, and my mother was an epitome of that. We had a nice dosage of the two.
On the personal side, she had a fairly well-developed sense of humor, and a joke was always appreciated, and she would laugh outrightly, I mean, very without any inhibitions, and she always appreciated a joke.
I think she draws a line, because sometimes when I used to summon cabinet meetings on her behalf, without her knowledge, she really flips it. Which I once did at Temple Tree. Someone entire cabinet. They kept walking in one after the other. So what on earth are you doing here? Why, madam, we have somebody in this cabinet meeting?
I think she
really lost the temper.
I thought, like Queen Victoria, she would have said, "We are not amused," but she chuckled to herself in private. I have a feeling she enjoyed the jokes, but she didn't want to show the son that, for fear that he might take it as a sign of encouragement.
Yes, well, there was an incident when the leopard was under a chair, and one of our ministers, Michael Sirimavo, Minister of Labour, was MP of Minimum, was seated on the chair. I didn't realize the leopard was underneath. And when the third lick on the foot, he stared down and found this growling leopard. He raised his sarong and charged into the main house. When mother was coming down to the rest of the cabinet for the cabinet meeting, she was absolutely living with this. Kotiye, Kotiye, screaming at the top of his voice. Not the kind of Kotiye as you find now, but this is a genuine one. Then she ran to him and said, "Do you realize that we have lost every single by-election we had up to date? And if this man dies, we are going to lose Minimum as well." Typical politicians.
Immediately she saw the practical problem there.
She was not the kind of person who ever forced any ideology on any one of us. If she did, I wouldn't have been in the UNP. She's not a person who said, "Don't do it." She leaves you don't do it, but they realize themselves later that the men were not suitable. I think that brings us at this point.
Well, she's a remarkable woman. She never suggested to either of the two girls that we should get married. Never produced any young men for us. But I must say, when we found our own, she did disapprove, but very mildly, I think, very mildly. She went along with it, and every time a marriage collapsed, she kind of grumbled a bit and took it in her stride.
Both of them married against my wish. I didn't want to stop because it was useless trying to stop it. They would have been unhappy, I would have been unhappy. So I let them have their own wish.
Whatever we've done, any conventional mother would have screamed her head off about. But you know, she would sort of resist. She would have followed a policy of ignore it and it'll go away.
I've never heard any arguments in the home. If my mother ever lost her temper and said something, which my mother, I've never really seen her losing her temper. I've never seen her stamping her feet or her hands on a table, even with us. She was such a placid person. But if she disagreed with my father very strongly on something and she went on and on about it, he would just make a joke of it. And the rare occasions where I've never seen my father lose his temper with her, but he used to lose his temper very often with everybody else and scream at the top of his voice, and then the whole thing disappeared in a few seconds. And then at those moments she would know to keep silent and just keep calm.
All the children are wise in different ways. but I can't say which one is wiser. They'll get angry with me if I say that. Sunita is very efficient in her work, whatever she does. She's very organized and of course determined and stubborn also.
Sunitra was a great asset to the office because one thing, she was absolutely low key, and this was a great help. And she was able to, in a quiet fashion, sort out a lot of problems without upsetting anybody.
Yes, the fact that we were in the public eye all our lives, more or less, but always in the public eye, has been a terrible nuisance. There was a time when I wore miniskirt, when some photographer chased me all over the fort and took a photograph and put it in the front page of the newspapers. Everybody was horrified. I was expected to have long hair, I cut it short. So, you see, silly, they're so trivial, but these things become important when you're in public life in this part of the world.
I hated it. I hated photographers. Whenever I saw a photographer, I would turn my back to such an extent, and all three of us were like that, to such an extent that there are very few photographs of us when we were young, at various functions, official functions or anything. I hated the limelight. I liked the work. I happen to be a workaholic and I like to do work and I like to see results. But the limelight, I didn't like it. Even now I find it a bit of a joke.
From the day she came out of school, she was wanting to get into politics. And they did get into politics. And they helped me in my elections in Atnagala, both Chandrika and Sunitra. They took on the election because I was busy running down helping the party. And Chandrika, of course, took to politics, active politics, and she did well. So, it was very creditable for her to have been the first in the provincial council chief minister. Then within a few months she became prime minister, within a few months she became president. All this with her own efforts. Of course, the fact that she was Sirimavo Bandaranaike's son also helped, no doubt. And she was a celebrity. So Chandrika, and I think we agree that she has done well.
Well, this girl, this is what her father used to say when she was a little girl. In the morning when he comes down for breakfast, they used to come down before going to school to say cheerio to the father. And he used to put his arms around the two girls and say, "This is my political daughter."
You see, my father in the latter years of his life, I remember used to tell people in his loud voice that he used to point me out in my hearing, and I think it wasn't an accident. He wanted me to get it into my head, like I'm brainwashing my children away from politics. He used to point me out and say, "This is my child who is going to follow in my footsteps."
Must be the father's courage. Some say she's not like the father. Father was not like her. Maybe the grandmothers, I think. So my father's mother was a very determined woman, as they say. Sirimavo Bandaranaike. He's got a father's large heart. Father was very large heart, so is his boy. And he's a good debater. I think today he's the best debater in the opposition. On our side, he was a very good debater. He was, for some number of years, he was leader of opposition, the SLP. And he stood up to the UNP, it was 2/3 majority or 5/6 majority. Stood up to that very well. He was as soon as he came out into politics. I was against that, but he was insisting on taking to politics. He got somebody to propose his name at the party meeting, to propose him as an organizer. So I had no alternative but to accept it. She came into active politics and he was very active. Anurag is also like the father, very good at retorting. Even in parliament is like that, a very good speaker is. And he talks very, very fast. He's like his father, he thinks very fast. And he talks to when anybody says anything. And that amuses me. I'm very happy about it. Almost at every meal we talk politics with the children. And children there, actually they got all interested in politics.
Well, it's difficult to do both. Now, my sister Sunitra is not involved in politics, so it's we hardly talk politics, so it doesn't matter. But when the other two are heavily involved in politics, they have two conflicting views. It's always there's a combustion point, as we have witnessed so many times.
With Anura, I had always a good relationship. Sunetra was very reserved and used to keep to herself. So she was not that close to Anura when we were young, but Anura and I were very close. Until recently again, politics came in and spoiled the relationship. But otherwise we were very friendly and we used to have a good time together, a good laugh. We have a lot of interests in common, cinema, reading. Anura is not very interested in music, but Sunetra and I music also, theatre. And we all love reading and writing also. Well, I think the main legacy is what I call the family business, politics. Though we never made a business of it in the sense that most other politicians do. This is a kind of business where we give everything we have and get nothing back from it. Well, I suppose that is chasing us all round, the three children.
And well, if they had rejected this Bandaranaike, maybe they have another Bandaranaike who turned in some other party, so it doesn't matter very much. The family stays on. That's not by design, that's purely by accident.
It was a very powerful group, no? And the three children could get together with me. We can very powerful group in this country. I don't know, you can ever get another group like that.
She certainly would like to see her grandchildren more, much more than she does. But I think security considerations. But when she does go to my sister's official residence for various meetings and so on, she sees the kids, has a quick chat with them. So that way she gets a chance to relate to them.
It all depends on what they are going to do. I don't know if they want to do politics. I think Murthy might do politics. Chandrika is hoping he won't. He's fond of horse riding, one after the grandfather, great grandfather. Not the daughter. She's interested in being a doctor. Boy is very knowledgeable, far too knowledgeable for his age. And he's very fond of horses like his grandfather and his great-grandfather, just riding. He got a horse at Temple Trees where he rides there. He's got the qualities of his great-grandfather, Sir Solomon, more than his grandfather. I must say they are very worried about the mother's security. Both of them.
My mother is very worried about that herself, and so are my children. Whenever they know I'm going to a public meeting, they keep telling me, please don't go. All leaders in this country have got assassinated at public meetings by the LTT and all that. But then, you know, it has gone beyond that point now. The only thing that worries me, I'm not bothered about my own life because I believe very deeply in Buddhist philosophy.
I believe in my religion, and I believe in if you have done good work, no harm can come to you. If you have done bad work, of course harm can come. It was quite obvious from Premadasa's death. If you do harm to people and if you don't behave like human beings, you have to suffer for it. That will be ideal situation. The idea if I can have my children and my grandchildren all around me, it will be an ideal situation, especially before I die. I know that is possible.